Well, good morning, everyone. We're starting a little early, about a minute early today. So my name's Renee Targus. Welcome to AgriBusiness Global Live. I'm the editor for AgriBusiness Global, and I'll be your host for today's webinar, Latin American Update. This webinar is sponsored by Rainbow, and we've got some interesting experts here to have a discussion about what's happening in Latin America. We've got Javier Fernandez. He's a legal counsel and director of regulatory affairs for CropLife Latin America. Hi, Javier.
Hi, Renee. Morning.
Hi. Good morning. We've got Juan Carlos Suido Rivera. He's a regional product manager for biologicals for Disagro. Welcome, Juan Carlos. And then we've got Diego Taub. He's an ABG advisory board member. He's also the director of Chempro SA. Welcome, Diego. And then Javier Chavarro. He's an independent consultant. He's also been a speaker at the Latin American AgriBusiness Global events last August. So welcome, Javier.
Hi, Renee. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes, you're welcome. All right, so today we're covering regulations, mergers and acquisitions, agrochemicals and biologicals in Latin America. And what we're going to be doing is each panelist will be talking for about 10 minutes about their specific area. After everybody finishes their presentation, we're going to take questions from the audience. We'll have about 10 minutes for that as well. So why don't we get started with Javier Fernandez. What changes are happening in regulations in Latin America, and what should people be keeping an eye on right now?
Wow, you sure I have 10 minutes, Rennie? Maybe I'll go from north to south. I guess Mexico has been in the eye of everybody. Glyphosate story has unveiled, and I guess we'll find out what's the fate of glyphosate there. But that's coupled with a couple of bills in Congress. For now, they're a bit quiet. They were supposed to get active as Mexico transitions to elections, but they want to introduce precautionary principle in regulatory decision making and look at a basket of active ingredients and categorize them as HHPs, and we kind of know what's the fate once that happens. So my members, CropLife Latin America members, they really appreciate predictability. And unfortunately, that's not the scenario in Mexico. So Mexico ranks high in the places that you would speak about regulations in Latin America. I guess honorary mention to Costa Rica, that they just passed the omnibus regulation. So they changed the whole regulatory system. It wasn't a real change. A lot of things were just reiterated, but now there's pressure on re-registration. The rules for re-registration were the ones that were changed a bit. So if you're there, you might want to take a look at that, because there's pressure. There's different rules of the game there. I guess Colombia, I'm still going south. Colombia has had a couple bans here in the last couple of years, chlorpyrifos and certainly fipronil was subject to a court decision, and now the court order has moved the regulatory space, and all abuses, including veterinary, have been impacted. Court decisions. The regulatory system has moved to the courthouse, and that's an interesting move. And there's probably more decisions in the same vein that will come. So you might want to look at that and what does it mean for your portfolio. And I guess last but not least, you want to take a look at Chile. They even had a constitutional or a new constitution process last year, and it was going to introduce precautionary principles and so a couple ideas on agriculture, agribusiness. That didn't fly, but there's still the regulatory office, SAG, that they're, I guess, soul searching. Now it's being run by the comptroller office of the country. And they might bring a basket of active ingredients, maybe around 100 of them, that they want to look into them as HHPs and think about removing them from the market. Chile had already removed paraquat, surprisingly, or in a way, surprisingly last year. Paraquat was a story in the recent years. It was removed from Peru and Brazil. And just like an eye on that, once that happened and you don't have a plan to transition out of an active ingredient, illegal trade has just went over through the roof. It's almost 25% of the illegal trade in Brazil, and there was a report on ABC and in Global, and the figures are really eye-opening, jaw-dropping. So that's what keeps me busy. Is that enough?
Yeah. So what's going on internationally that's affecting the area? I know, we've got the European, Farm to Fork initiative. Like, what else is happening that's affecting Latin America?
Yeah, thanks for picking that up. It makes me think. I mean, there's a connection in a way. You wouldn't think there's a de facto regulation from the EU. I mean, here's the story. EU is looking at their portfolio. I guess participants know that 1107. They're renewing. A lot of molecules are not being renewed for ag use, and EU interprets that then the MRL, the import tolerance, goes to a detection level, and for for our region and in the recent 3 years, agricultural exporting countries, tropical exporting countries, that's a de facto ban. If you don't have an EU MRL, pretty much you're out of the market. Now you can't segregate. Oh, these little coffee beans go to Japan and this go to you. It's really confusing. So we lost key actives to this process in the EU, mancozeb, pyrphosphorothalonil, MRL. So, what we call it like a kind of de facto ban in the region. But recently, we lost the import tolerance in the EU to thiamethoxam and clothianidin. And the difference here is that triggered, or the EU called upon their mirror clauses and on environmental factors. So they're concerned about pollinator health around the globe. So the way to regulate an environmental issue is to use a consumer safety issue. It's kind of funny how it works, but that's how it works over there. And that's going to put regulatory pressure on the region. And don't forget, it's coming. We have a triple COP of the Rotterdam, Basel, and Stockholm Convention. When this convention is a prime informed consent, is information sharing for trade, and they operate with some annexes. So once an active ingredient goes into an annex, it should be just the information exchanging system. But countries have interpreted, because it's in the FAO HHP criteria, that the active ingredient should be banned, and that's a misinterpretation or misrepresentation of the convention. Some actives are going to be there, and the convention is looking at a proposal to water down the requisites and make it easier to annex compounds. So I foresee that in the future, those two aspects, certainly now, the EU and the MRL decline story and the Rotterdam Convention is, if it enhances its scope, it's going to put regulatory pressure in the region.
Okay. We've got just a couple minutes left to talk about regulations, but can you talk a little bit more about Mexico? Because I know that's been like a hot topic, as far as regulations go. So what are some of the developments there that maybe you're concerned about, or maybe that, people should really, definitely watch closely in the coming year?
Yeah, well, I guess it's politics. They're going to start moving to elections. And if this is a political hot topic, it's going to be even more, I guess. Also, I think you want to look into the fact that, the biotech imports are like a very close relative to the pesticides. And that was really interesting. That triggered a USMCA panel. So NAFTA changing to USMCA, and it has a dispute resolution system. I am unaware of. Probably there were some other disputes, but it was big that it triggered a dispute on the import corn issue. So I think that's gonna weed out the politics of the story, sanitize the politics of the story. I hope it makes it a more professional debate on the rational, on the risks or hazards that Mexico. So that's just my hope. But in Mexico, you want to be tuning into politics. The bills in Congress might get reactivated like this month as we speak. And look at that panel. That can give us leads on what's going to happen. Unfortunately, the panel will overrun the elections, and you know how that plays in Latin America, or probably you don't know because nobody knows.
All right, thank you so much, Javier. All right, so now we're going to move over into a discussion about biologicals, and Juan Carlos will kind of give us an overall idea of kind of what's going on in Latin America. And Juan Carlos, if you want to focus specifically on areas that you feel like biologicals are, what regions are adopting biologicals at a quick rate? I mean, I know Brazil, that's happening in Brazil, but what other countries are increasing in adoption, and what products are being used?
Okay, good morning, everybody. Okay, let's say I will focus more in Central America, Colombia, because I have been working in this region as well in the Caribbean for the last 32 years. And as Javier said, there are some drivers that are moving the market faster than we expected, especially the bees toxicity with clothianidin in Europe. That I think are making easy for this new technology to go into the market. That's one of the drivers for me. The other driver, there is another issue with paraquat, but we will talk later on paraquat. The other issue for me is the ban of chlorpyrifos in bananas, because they use the chlorpyrifos to spread the bags to cover the bananas. That's another issue. And the third one is the chlorothalonil for the sigatoka control. That's quite important. But mancozeb, that's a big issue in this region because we have huge bananas in Central America, and how to manage sigatoka, that's a big problem here, especially in Costa Rica. And I don't see the crop to produce banana without mancozeb. They are spraying at least 45 sprays per 45 spray per year, once a week. So, and it's not an issue of residues. It's an issue, I think, more related with environmental topics. Yeah. So, focus on that. I think banana is the most important crop. But coming back to the question, sugarcane are adopting the technology because I was managing a project in a sugar mill in Guatemala, and they are using metarhizium as a part of an integrated pest management control of phenolamia, which is a very important pest in sugarcane. Other important crop for me is rice, and rice is adopting the technology. They are using a lot of trichodermas as an early application, and mix it with the residuals herbicides. And melons, for example, is a very intensive crop. So then it's not easy because the issue there is Sphaerotheca, which is a very important disease, and you cannot manage that with this kind of products because the disease is so intensive. And coffee, yes, they are using some Berberia bassiana, but there is another issue here. If chlorpyrifos is banned for coffee butter for coffee butter management here in this region, then the biologicals will take the place because there is no other way to coming back to those insecticides, to those old technology to manage coffee butter. And in veggies, in veggies, there is a tendency to use day by day more biologicals. But I think the end users, no, I mean the supermarkets in the States are pushing the growers here in Central America to produce veggies with less chemical charge. This is as a general overview with my comments here in Central America. The other very important point is that there are many local producers, yeah, and there are issues involved in the local producers, especially bacillus. They are producing bacillus, trichoderma. There is a lot of places where they are producing trichodermas, and metarhizium. Most of the sugarcane mills are producing their metarhizium, and yes, I think, but in general, the growers are adopting the technology, but it's moving not as fast as we expect, but they are now in the market. That's a general comment.
Right. I had a question, Juan Carlos, about, a lot of the companies are creating these customized programs, and I'm not sure if Tasagro is doing the same, but they're basically using biologicals at one point, and then the chemicals. And you were talking about bananas. I've talked to Fifes, and they're talking about using, crop cover and oils, on the plants and spraying oils. But I know that they did have an issue with not all biologicals working as effectively as that they wanted to. But they also have to keep those MRLs down so that they can export, to Europe. So what kind of programs are you seeing where there's a mix of biologicals and the agrochemicals?
Yeah, it depends, because for example, in Costa Rica, it's impossible because the heavy pressure of the disease. I'm talking of Sigatoka, which is a big issue here in Central America. But if we move to Guatemala, the south of Guatemala, where the weather let the technology to go in. For me, yes, it's possible in Guatemala to mix or to use bacillus, especially bacillus. The formulation is quite important, but the weather is the most important. Yeah, and the dry season, because for South Guatemala, we have only 2 seasons: the dry season and the wet seasons. And the dry season, yes, it's possible, but there is another issue, because the price of banana box, it is flat. And so the price per hectare with this new technology must be the same with the mancozeb. And this is a big issue here in Central America. All the technicians, they will not move to any other technology once they have mancozeb still in the market. That's my conclusion. If we move to Ecuador, for example, yes, it's possible to use also this technology. But if we move to Belize, then it's complicated, and also the north of Guatemala because the heavy pressure of the disease. So we need more information. We have been developing some data with this, but the weather is the most important.
I'm going to switch. I'm going to ask Javier Fernandez a quick question because we didn't talk about biologicals with regulations. How is we're talking about Costa Rica and you were talking about Guatemala. What are the regulations like that for biologicals in those areas?
Yeah, well, I guess biological regulation is in its infancy. We still are lacking robust regulatory frameworks. So that's an opportunity because you can work out a regulation. That's a problem because stuff is not regulated. So when we look at this, we don't want to over-regulate. And one of the big mistakes that we don't want to see is that biologicals are regulated as agrochemicals. They're 2 different subject matters, right? But in that regard, I guess actually USDA and ICA, and they're collaborating very neat projects and maybe look at synergies between technologies. So there was a recent project where they were trying to combine the use of agrochemicals. I mean, this is stewardship or product management, right? So use a chemical control, and towards the end of the cycle, move into biologicals. So that way, you would work with your PHI and try to not incur in MRL exceedances. So I think there's synergies there. We want to regulate. We still don't know what to regulate, and it's still a technology in its infancy. But there's opportunities to rotate. I guess listening to Juan Carlos, I'm glad I was not bluffing. He just put the cherry in the pie. What I said, he just puts the reality of sugarcane, rice, bananas. It's happening, unfortunately. Compliance with export markets. So, but synergies between two technologies could be a way out of this.
And Juan Carlos, you know, when you're talking about biologicals, I know there's like a lot of growers are kind of hesitant to use them because you have to apply them at a specific time. It has to be, you know, it's very specific, versus agrochemicals are kind of, you know, they're a little bit more forgiving as far as how you use them and their effectiveness. Do you think education is an important part of getting these growers to use it? And in what countries do you see that being a pretty critical, you know, thing that needs to happen as far as educating the growers?
Yeah, you are right. The education is the most important issue, but also the cost per hectare. You are dealing with your money, and you have to make money. So you will not include any technology into the crop management if you don't if you're not doing money. And going back to the environment impact of the traditional chemicals, yeah. But there's an example. Paraquat has been here for many years. And, you know, we know everybody about Paraquat. And Paraquat is still in the market because it's needed to produce corn here in this region. If we move to bananas, as I will tell you that again, if the technicians has mancozeb on the table, they will continue using mancozeb because they will not take any risk. And if you go with the new technology with a higher cost, and the price of a box of bananas in the market is flat, they will not use that. At least there is a total ban. Yeah. And then with that scenario, I'm talking about bananas, the price must go up. Yeah. They had to increase the price, because without mancozeb, the price will go up, because they had to find a way how to manage the disease. It's not easy because it's quite complicated to manage, because there are many problems with resistance issues with the disease. So they need this kind of products like Bacillus to manage resistance. And I will go back with the comment of Javier. Yeah, the PHI is important, especially for veggies. We are exporting veggies, but with the actual technology, they don't have many problems with the residues. That we have something else. We need the pressure from the government, from the supermarkets in the States or in Europe to reduce the chemical charge in each crop. And with that regulations comes with the growers, then will be easy to push this product into the market. Another important issue is that we are pushing the mixtures of this technology with the traditional fungicides, for example, which is a good example. I'm working on that on rice. And yes, there is a possibility to reduce the use of fungicides, mixing this technology without no impact in the cost per hectare.
Great. Thank you so much, Juan Carlos and Javier. Diego, we'd like to ask you kind of what's happening in Argentina. And I know you've got a PowerPoint presentation that you'd like to share. So yeah, if you want to come off mute and share your PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, so I hope I'm on mute already. And this is the PowerPoint in English. Okay, so I'll make a very quick flyover what is going on in Argentina, because as you might know, or most of you live in more or less normal countries, and Argentina is clearly not a normal country. So I don't know, for example, in your country, for sure, you have one exchange rate. $1 equals, I don't know, 1.01 euro, or $1 is, I don't know, something in reales or whatever. In Argentina, we have 16 different exchange rates. Official blue, which is the unofficial, Malbec, which is for the exports of wine, soya for the exports of soya, and for tourism, and so on, so on, so on. So everything's very complicated here. If we can make things easy, I don't know why making them easy if we can make them difficult. So I'll go from the weather to the crop production, to the reserves of the central bank, to the normal economy. So the weather. I'd like to show you this map, which is the available water in topsoil.
Diego, were you going to present your PowerPoint? If you want to do, you have to share the screen, share your screen.
It's not screen. It's not
Yeah, we're not able to see it right now.
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. So I was going to tell you the available water in topsoil. And this is the evolution from left, May the 1st. You can see it. It was not very good, but there was some blue and green, which was okay. And then we continue the sequence, and you will see July is starting to get orange. September gets orange and some little green. And if you look March, there's a little green up north, but everything's orange. So we've had the worst drought in 15 years. So this is a disaster, especially for a country like Argentina, which depends, we are an agricultural country. Like 15 years ago, I wrote an article for at that time Farm Chemicals magazine, which was called Argentina, the Soya Nation. And 15 years have passed, and there was no development. We are still the soya nation, and this is a problem. So, given this huge drought, we expect to lose 16 million tons of crops, the different crops. So, instead of having 52 million tons of crops, we expect 36. Soya, we expect 25 million tons. That's a decrease of 44%, and it's the worst campaign in 15 years. Maize or corn, we expect it again, worst campaign in 20 years. And what's the problem with this? All our farmers depend a lot on, well, I don't have to explain you guys how farmers think and work. So in Argentina, if the guys have a good agricultural campaign, instead of going on holidays or going on a nice trip or whatever, they buy a new truck. They start thinking of how they will improve their machinery, how they will update their logistics, how they will update their silos and everything. And this will be a disaster as of next year. So here we have a production forecast from the last 5 years, 2000, and you see it's going down and down and down. And we will see what we're starting with the harvesting this in the next this month, and next month we'll have a definite figure, but we expect it to be close to 80 million, coming from record years of 140, 130, and so on. And I was saying before, production of soya decreased to 18 million tons, corn to 16 million tons. And this is the most important thing here. The agricultural sector represents 65% of the currency, the hard currency that enters into Argentina. Our exports of agricultural origin are $2 out of $3 that come to Argentina come from agro. So imagine that you have lost 50% of your crop, you will get 50% less exports. And this is equivalent, the country will be losing nearly 21,000 million dollars, which is a huge, huge, huge gap for the country. So that's, again, before I was speaking of normal countries and not normal countries. Normal countries.
Diego, I just wanted to give you a heads up. We've got about 2 more minutes.
Sure. Normal countries give export benefits. And normal countries give export taxes. So if you have imagine you have 3 trucks of soya, the farmer gets. 1/3 goes out as export tax. 1/3, then he keeps 2 trucks, yeah? From the 2 trucks, he must pay seed, fertilizers, agrochemicals, labor, taxes. And if he gets money, then he has to keep another paid corporate taxes. So in the end, the problem we're having is, as Argentina, the weather has played a very bad situation against the country. There's nothing we can do. The production is much less. The multiplying effect of the agrochemical, of the whole agribusiness system has shrunk. As an example, nearly 1.6 million truckloads were lost. So you can imagine, the guys of the truck don't sell their service. They use less energy. They use less tires. They use less services in the gasoline in the road. They don't buy new cars. So everything's more or less a disaster. The good thing is farmers still have soya from previous years, from previous campaigns in their warehouses, and they can sell it, and the government is giving incentives so that this is sold. And it will be a tough year, but our farmers are super efficient. And now a very short thing of registration that we were speaking so much. SENASA is the regulatory office in Argentina. SENASA, it has been closed for 3 years after COVID-19. It has reopened, but they have such a bottleneck that registers that should take, normally we say 12 months, we have delays of 5 years, and the registers are not even being checked. And the bottleneck today is confidential information of TC. And I think I've done it in 2 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Diego. Yeah, do you want to stop sharing your screen now?
Yes.
And then I think I'll have some questions for you after we have Javier Chavarro share his information. But thank you very much. That was, and it's sad to hear that that's how things are in Argentina. That sounds like a real blow to, the growers and then just the, the food sources. So, all right, Javier Chavarro, do you want to give us an update on mergers and acquisitions?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Renee. Yeah. Have you heard the Mexican, Central America, and Argentina position you understand that Latin America is the pantry for the world. Yeah, that means that we have three kinds of producers here. Yeah, we have the specialized grains producers and exporters in the South America. That means Brazil and the South Cone, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia. Yeah, you have the second group is the fruit and vegetables producers and exporters. And we are talking about Chile, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Mexico, and some countries of Central America, Guatemala and Costa Rica. Have you heard Juan Carlos? And now we have the third group that are producing for the internal consumption of our country. So for that reason, it is very important the merger and acquisitions taking in account that situation. I would like to share with all of you a very important point, yeah, for us to try to understand the situation here. We have around 4 different waves, yeah, that we have in the merger and acquisitions here in Latin America, right? The merger and acquisitions, yeah, we have an evolution from products to hybrids, not only in Latin America, but worldwide, yeah. We are moving from the first wave for the first round. The idea is that we have 4 waves in the process of merger and acquisition. The first round is around, we are talking about product portfolio. When a company is buying another chemicals to put in their portfolio to offer the different customers worldwide. The second wave was when the companies start to buy companies that we call the mega mergers, yeah? And today, perhaps, there is no more companies to buy, yeah? For that reason, their companies start to focus on regional and local distributors purchases. If you see many companies are buying some distributors locally, this is a very important situation in Brazil, where you have a very broad amount of compound distributors, both but different kind of companies, yeah? And the idea is after this that started in Brazil, that moved to the South Cone, now to Andean region, to Colombia, Mexico. Now, many companies are buying these kind of distributors because they want to enter directly to the customers in that countries. And now we are seeing a very important view about how are we going to do with the new complex situation that the producers are affected. If you see the situation of the European Union putting some restrictions to the chemical products that farmers are applying in the products, they have some clear difficult situation for them. For that reason, many important companies start to acquire different biological companies or products or made some agreements with these companies to try to get some products to put in their portfolios to offer a mixing waves of products that they can apply in the fields, yeah? Because they have some restrictions. We heard about the bananas. We cannot apply any fungicide, any chemical fungicide because they have some restrictions there. For that reason, they need to apply other kind of products. And this is the way we are living in this moment. The situation is clear. For the future, as the European Union said, for 2030, they are thinking the reduction of 50% of application of agrochemicals. And this is a very important impact here for the local producers in our countries that are exporting to the European Union. They cannot apply that kind of chemicals, but they must apply a different kind of biologicals to try to get a better product offer to the countries, not only European Union, but the Asian countries or the US, yeah? This is a very important situation, and this is the way we are having to handle the situation here in Latin America. The companies that are buying some biological companies to offer to the farmers the opportunity to apply different kind of products.
Right, and then I know a lot of that has to do also with specific regions responding to certain biologicals, and then the regulations for those biologicals of that region, all of that kind of plays into, those mergers and acquisitions. And I know, for the people attending this webinar right now, Javier does have some great slides that we'll have, once we record this, we'll send it out, and then we can attach those slides so that people can see the breakdown of how you've really shown like what companies have merged with what biological companies, and all the activity that's going on in that area. So, all right, so we're at a point now where we're taking questions from our audience. So if you'd like to put your questions in the Q&A, we will ask our panelists. And as you're doing that, I have a couple of questions, that I'd like to ask. So Diego, with everything that's going on in Argentina that you just mentioned, is the government doing anything to help, subsidize, or is there any sort of efforts going on there to help the growers in Argentina?
Of course not. The government does not. But that's a little bit political side. But they see that the farmers they believe in very old terms, like the farmers are the old oligarchy, and they don't understand that we are an industry that has no chimneys, like tourism. So right now they realize that there's a lot of soya that has been kept from the past in silos and in silo bags. And they need to collect US dollars because they need reserves. So last Wednesday, they came with dollar soya version 3. Today, for example, as I told you before, we have 16 different exchange rates. The official exchange rate is roughly $1, 200 pesos. The black market is $1, 400 pesos. The soya dollar is $1, 300 pesos. But to this, you must deduct 35% export tax. So you go down to 200 pesos, which is much better than having $1 of 200 less 35%, which was roughly 130 or something like this. So we are in a complicated situation, and we could not, the country needs our super efficient farmers. They need, what these guys are doing, it's incredible, because they are fighting to get import licenses, to get the product in time. They are fighting against the weather. Okay, weather, climate is something nobody of us can handle. But I don't know, in my next life, I would like to be a cow in Scotland to collect all the subsidies. Yeah, it's a difficult time, but Argentina, as I said before, we need to the agricultural sector. For example, this year we will have to import soya from Paraguay to feed the crush milling industry. We have the biggest crush mill in the world in Rosario port, and we don't have enough soya. So we will bring soya by barge through the Rio Paraná. And okay, for our export, it still will be an export, but we will get less dollars because we will have to be paying the Paraguayan soya and then export the added value soya, wheat or the oil. Yes.
Right.
But we will continue being here, and it's really interesting that how the different, we're, as Javier was saying before, Javier Chavarro, as we are in the same industry, but totally different. Like if you are a super huge grower like Grupo Los Grobo or this conglomerates we have in Argentina that they are planting 100,000 hectares, and they're factories, and like the small growers making fine fruits, berries and cranberries and all this in the south, or apples, and they need a totally different technological package for this. I was hearing of chlorpyrifos. Chlorpyrifos was banned here 2 years before pandemic, but there's not a product that will replace it effectively. So we banned all the cheap insecticides, metamidophos, endosulfan, chlorpyrifos. Everything is banned. But we don't have something with which to spray 1,000 hectares at an economical price. In the end, soya, you know, it's used for feeding pigs in China. It's not used for human consumption per se, yes. So,
Right.
well, we have the same.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Javier Chavarro, I had a question for you. You know, you had a breakdown of all the different big players, you know, like Syngentas and Cortivas. Is there a merger and acquisition activity that happened lately in Latin America that you think that, you know, people should pay attention to? I know that there were some mergers and acquisitions of, you know, some biological companies that were specifically out of Latin America. So is there anything you wanted to talk about regarding that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Today in Latin America, there is a big way of companies buying distributors or companies buying another companies locally. Yeah. This is an interesting situation that it happened with companies like the US group. Yeah. Buying some groups in Mexico, Cafesa, Cifatec, yeah. And the idea is companies like Rovensa buying companies like Oroagri or Cosmocel in Latin America, mainly focus, especially in the companies that can have something to offer to the different farmers in the field. Yeah, the idea is to try to put all the products in a strategy, like companies like UPL is doing with the NPP, the natural plant protection, or Adama is doing with the Adama Bio. Yeah, the idea is to put and to offer this kind of product in a different way. And the idea is this is a continuous offering for the different companies to be buying, all the companies trying to buy different companies in Latin America, especially the ones that can reach the customers directly. This is mainly the idea, what we are seeing in this point here in Latin America.
All right, well, that sort of wraps up. It looks like we don't have any questions from our audience. So gentlemen, I appreciate you taking the time to do this talk about what's happening in Latin America. And also we'd like to let people know that AgriBusiness Global is having their trade summit on August 9th and 10th. So if you'd like to join us there, we'll have some more educational sessions and it'll be a chance for everyone to get together and do business. That's it for now. So we'll see you at the next webinar.